I've been a Game Center CX fan for a long time now, since 2008 when I started watching episodes that had been uploaded to YouTube at night, back in a hotel room I was staying in during a work trip. I instantly became a huge fan of the show, even though back then I couldn't understand a lot of it. But as time passed and my Japanese got better, I started comprehending more and even buying the DVD box sets and pretty much everything else I could get my hands on. Game Center CX for a while now has held big live events to celebrate their 5-year anniversaries. They did the Budokan in 2013 and Makuhari Messe in 2018. And I watched the Blu-rays of both of those so many times, and they just seemed like so much fun in a way that even the regular recorded show couldn't quite match. So when they announced that their 2023 live event was going to be at Saitama Super Arena, I knew I had to go. So even though you can now buy the DVD or Blu-ray of the event and watch it for yourself, I want to talk a little bit about just what the experience was of being there in person just around 1 year ago from the time I'm filming this. I joined the Game Center CX fan club as soon as they announced this, because in Japan, the way they tend to do concerts and event tickets is that fan club members are always able to enter a lottery or have some kind of privilege to purchase some of the best seats ahead of general ticket sales. I could talk for a while about what a horrible experience buying Japanese event tickets has become if you're living overseas and traveling there, but I'll save that for another time. So I managed to get my tickets thanks to the help of a Japanese friend, and I brought her American Halloween candy as a thank you. And on the day of the event, I set out bright and early from Tokyo because I wanted to be able to buy the merch that I wanted before it sold out. I was also buying things for a couple of friends too, so I ended up carrying around a big bag full of stuff for the whole rest of the time. The process was actually pretty great though. We were lined up and the staff gave us all forms to fill out with pencils so that we could just mark everything we wanted, total it up, and hand it right to them when we got to the merch tables. I got things like this mug, uchiwa, and towel, and 2 t-shirts, including the Nina Matsumoto design shirt that I'm wearing right now. When it came time for the event to start and we all went inside, everyone got a cooling patch with a note that told us to please wait to put it on until the designated time, which is basically when Arino put his on. If you've seen the show before, you know what I'm talking about, but he sometimes put one of these cooling pads on his forehead when the game he's playing is really giving him a hard time. The event opened with the show's first AD, Tojima, taking another shot at one of his earliest challenges, taking down all 8 cores of Raridos and Star Force on the Famicom, which basically requires some pretty mean button mashing. And he did it! Great job, Tojima. Then Arino came out on what I guess I'd describe as like some kind of a version of a float that you'd see in a Japanese matsuri. At least that's clearly what they were trying to invoke. He made a circuit around the whole arena, throwing balls out at the crowd before he finally took to the stage. Now, the games he was going to be playing had been slowly revealed beforehand, all save for one mystery game. And none of them were just clear this game. They were all little sections of games he'd played previously that had been particularly difficult for him at the time. But the one that people were looking forward to the most was up first, and that was Punch-Out on the NES. Arino had a history with trying to beat Soda Popinski at the previous live events and coming up just shy of it. So this was like his big revenge match against Popinski. He did lose once and had to go back to Piston Honda, but he managed to finally beat Popinski in the next attempt after that. And I think way quicker than anyone thought he would based on his past performances. Just seeing him finally do this really set the stage for what the energy was going to be like throughout the event, which was just off the charts. Honestly, the crowd was going crazier than I've seen at most Japanese concerts by this point, and it was only the first game. Next up was Mega Man 2, specifically the part with the big lasers and Quickman stage. Here, Arino kept falling for the bait of the items being over on the side, and if you go to collect them, you just get hit by the lasers. So the crowd kept having to yell at him to remind him not to pick them up. And he actually managed to clear this challenge too. The third game was what ended up being one of my favorites, and I feel like a crowd favorite too. A specific route that had a hairpin turn in Tokyo Bus Guide on the PlayStation 2. During some specific parts when cars would just come out of nowhere and turn onto the street in front of him, he'd yell, "Abunai, bakayano!" Like, that's dangerous, you idiot. And it was pretty real. Arino had some setbacks along the way, but he managed to nail that last hairpin turn with some guidance beforehand and cleared the challenge again. The crowd really went wild for this one too, because for such a laid-back game, it just felt surprisingly tense with that final turn. Next, they revealed the secret game, but it was through a short recording that requires some explanation. So, when the anime Spy Family released in 2022 and was just super popular and everywhere, Game Center CX had a segment called Kacho Family, where one of the staff members put on a pink wig and played Sanya, and she'd go on spy missions to bring back rare controllers or games and things like that to her mom and dad at home, and play them with Arino, who in this case was her fictional dad. So in this video, her mission was to find out what the secret game was, and through finding a series of letters that would eventually reveal the game's name, she ended up interacting with a bunch of former staff members, as well as people who had appeared in past segments, such as Kate Sensei, who starred in an amazing segment where she was trying to teach Arino English based on things found in games. Masahiro Sakurai even made an appearance, complete with his favorite drink, Coke Zero, and pulled the next card out of a stuffed Kirby's butt. Anyway, the mystery game was revealed to be the weirdo Famicom version of Dragon's Lair, and Arino's task was to defeat the final boss, Singe. And because of the way the Japanese syllabic alphabet works, they were calling him Shinji, which really just made it extra funny. I didn't know at the time that the dragon's name was Singe, so I was just wondering, why did they just decide to call this dragon Shinji? Arino did end up failing his first challenge here, though. Now, I've never played this version of Dragon's Lair before, but to be fair to Arino, this fight looked brutal because Singe had a ton of health, and it was just decreasing so slowly, and you had to be super accurate with your movements because of his up and down attacks. It was another very tense challenge. We then took a break for a performance by AXK, staff writer and author Kibei's sort of band that purposely mimics Japanese musical duo Access, since keyboardist and composer Daisuke Asakura is a big idol of Kibei's. The fifth game was the final boss fight with Gava from Contra 3 on the Super NES. Arino got through the first phase pretty quickly by himself, but for the second phase they called in help from Tom Kusuda, who had played this part of the game with Arino in the original challenge, and had since been in some skits with him on the show. This part of the boss fight is a bit odd since it involves hitting specific objects which are orbiting around the boss, and you kind of have to deal with whatever the one you hit does, some being easier to manage than others. And with Tom's help, he managed to clear this one too. The sixth game was some match or other in Captain Tsubasa on the Famicom, which is a game I honestly don't have too much affection for. It's a soccer RPG, which is definitely kind of a neat idea, but I don't know. People seem to love the original episode of the show where Arino played this game, but it's not really that high up there for me. Anyway, he didn't quite pass this one either. Now, the seventh and final game was one of the ship levels in World 8 of Super Mario Bros. 3 on the NES that scrolls very quickly and has just a lot of obstacles to worry about and wrenches flying everywhere. As a platformer, this one was particularly tense, but Arino managed to clear it with the help of all the three legendary ADs that were helping him on the show way back when he originally played Mario 3. If you have a history of the show, these are just really cool moments when they bring back the old ADs and the games that they're originally known for helping on. And though it was clear at this point that they were trying to wrap things up pretty quickly to maintain a schedule, the show closed out with a couple more musical performances. The first was former ADs Tsuruoka and Nakayama, both of whom were very made up, performing the song Last Continue that Nakayama had actually written and had been used for the show several years ago. It might be my imagination, but Nakayama just looked very uncomfortable out there. Maybe it was nerves. And last was Tatakai Kacho Faita, another song that was written for the show a while back, and they often perform at these live events. And it's kind of a tradition now at these things for Arino to, at a certain point in the song, shout out what he wants to do for the next Game Center CX anniversary event. At Makuhari Messe, he'd actually shouted out that he wanted to do Saitama Super Arena, and it happened. This time he said he wanted to do a countrywide tour, so we'll see if that happens in 2028. Finally, to close out the show, Arino got back on his float and held up a sign that said it was okay to take photos and upload them to social media. Now, for those who don't know, it's a thing during events with Japanese artists in Japan that you can't take pictures during the event unless they explicitly say so. Very different from here in the US, where everyone has their phones out all the time. And after Arino exited, they put this sign up on the screen that said, "Please go home now." I've been to Japan a handful of times at this point, and many of the trips have been to attend specific events, mostly concerts. I'm so glad I got to attend this, and I hope I can make it to whatever happens for the next anniversary in 2028. The energy that all the fans had was really amazing, and there was even a group of cosplayers outside called the Nisei Kacho, or Fake Kachos, that were specifically cosplaying the fight between Little Mac and Soda Popinski. It was great. If you're not a Game Center CX fan and have somehow watched this far, you should really check out the show. And if you are a Game Center CX fan and haven't had the chance to go to one of these live events, I'd really recommend it, because it might just end up being an experience of a lifetime for you, just like it was for me.